Hey guys, this is CallanLoF with another episode of Mock Advice, and today I'm talking about forearms. So, here, let me explain exactly what I'm hoping to do here. I'm hoping to come away with a few points here. Particularly with the bigger figures here, I'd like to focus on structural things with the arms and how to use kind of creative pieces, particularly, and combinations to try and make things structurally sound at a larger scale, and how you can do those effectively. And then, of course, with the smaller ones, basically just how to use as small of pieces as possible and different connections to get nice posable arms that you can use well for animation. And then, of course, the main takeaway with building arms in general is that you have a lot more freedom than with the legs, because the legs always have to be strong enough to support the body itself. So don't take that freedom for granted. Play around with what you can do. Sometimes you can make the arms a little too heavy, and you got to watch out for that. But sometimes you can just make it just right. So that's where you want to go for. Very insightful comments, I know. So let me start with the big guys, and let me start with the Tahu here. He's got a much more messy kind of design scheme here, considering he's armed to the teeth and he's got all sorts of weapons all over him. So in order to best take advantage of that with the arms here, I was able to, out of this color scheme necessity, I had to, in order to use this brown as kind of like a darkened orange from his Nuva days, I used the Hookie brown, and of course I was limited by the colors there, but here I'm using the Hookie foot with the axle through it, and of course this would normally spin around a bit, but due to the combination of some pieces here, it's held securely. So there's a ball joint under here that helps keep that secure. That's a good way to not only get this piece here to provide more cover for the gaps there, but also keep that secure. And then, of course, to hold extra weapons for his kind of crazy scheme, I got a turkey leg connected to pressuring in this pair of minifig handcuffs that holds in this little grenade here and the axe on that hand. So, yeah, that's a lot of kind of weird pieces mixed together, but from a distance, it doesn't look too bad. It's a little messy there. There's some exposed bits, and sometimes that's going to happen, particularly when you're limited with the colors of certain pieces. But point is to try and use whatever you can to get the look you want, and particularly if you're working on a messier, more grungy type of character, you can get away with that a bit better. On a slightly different angle, where the kind of interesting, nice parts usage is mixed into the actual structure of the arm, just as well you can kind of use other general pieces to work around certain parts and have a more simple base or a more standard base that you can use the other to work the armor around. Here you got the lightsaber rod that attaches this on the end. There's no standard ball joint connection. The arm actually used to be like that until I changed it in favor for this more complex design, which ultimately works because I'm able to fill in more gaps and get the cool Metru armor there. Of course, there still is a gap between the Metru armor and these system pieces here. So what did I do about that? I just used a little a Viking ear thing from the original Vikings. Obviously, it's a little tooth that's been used a lot of times on LEGO now. And I just put it in as carefully as possible and wedged that in, and smooths in the gap there. And if you can do, it doesn't look the most smooth there, but you can play around with the different textures and the different gaps between things to try and get different looks there. Perhaps if I change the color there, it would look maybe like the innards of his armor that are not covered. Whatever you're going for, just look for any ways to fill in the gaps as smoothly as possible and try and make it work with the design scheme of the character. This one doesn't hit that as much, but it's something to be wary of. And then the final one for the big guys, you just sometimes standard Lego pieces will work well with what you're accomplishing. I have a standard Metru thigh here, and it holds on these two armors on the side well. I got the little 1x1 red plate to fill in the gap there a bit, and ultimately it all does the job pretty well. Doesn't necessarily need to be super complicated, as long as you're getting the, and again, yeah, it also supports the design thing I was trying to do with having the Nui-Jaga stingers in red on the shoulders and thighs, while having these cool red scrowl pieces on the forearms and shins. So yeah, whatever ultimately supports the design scheme you're going for. So now for the smaller guys, these are more structural things. I'm going to, actually, before I get to the smaller guys, let me first mention that, again, in terms of working around pieces, sometimes gears and other things that have as many connection points as possible can serve the base of the arm. It's not my prettiest arm for sure, it's kind of messy, but it gets the job done and it holds everything together. So look for as many connection points as possible, especially on more interesting pieces. Even gears can serve as good bases for new connection points. So yeah, for now, actually moving on to the little guys. Structurally, this is a very simple arm, and you might be wondering what exactly I did here. If you're any familiar with Lego at all, you probably know exactly what I did. I took a Lego tubing from some of the old Technic sets and just cut it to be basically a little this length, so that these two little hands on the sides can hold on. It's slightly cheating, but it gets the job done. Yeah, it's not the prettiest thing ever, but it's pretty clean, generally speaking, and you get a lot of range of motion out of it. So that's just one way to get lots of posability out of small figures and get something that looks effective overall. And as for Larnu, I'm going to talk about him briefly here. Very simple, using these cool pieces from the 2003 Matoran as their legs, and this time using it as their arms. You can get a lot of range of motion out of these, and it's really good for animation. Again, pretty simple stuff, but it whatever, again, anything for the animation and for having nice posability, and also for the design scheme. I wanted him to have like two gray robot arms to kind of counteract with his yellow and green normal look. And then of course finally with this guy, he's got these small arms. It just using, sometimes you can mix system in there as well. These mixel pieces have been very useful in general. This is of course based off of IDS 5621's design. He's introduced using mixel pieces into animated small figures very well, and I would recommend you check out his videos, which have done really cool animations. This is his hand design as well. I'll put a link to one of those in the description. But yeah, using these mixel pieces as forearms is really simple, but it's really smooth, and I recommend, if you're going particularly for lots of range of motion, you can get a lot of freedom now using these joints. So play around with those on a small scale as well, and sometimes even on a bigger scale, but not too big, because they are pretty small ball joints, so you don't want to stress the weight of it too much. But yeah, that's basically my main spiel here. I hope this has been somewhat informative and has given you some ideas, even if it was a little rambly. I will be back to more animation stuff very soon, and Mata, I'm going to be working on sending out some lines for that soon. So I hope you guys get excited for that, and thank you very much for watching this video. I'll be back next Saturday with another animation. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys then. Bye.